似秘書長咁講法係言之成理，咁點解唔一早去城規啫？點解要拖住即係搞咁耐呢？因為反正嗱，你又一早都已經定晒案，因為其實呢，我相信呢度大家呢都好多議員好熟悉㗎啦。攞去城規會嗰個申請呢，就係第一就土地用途啦，商住啊，定係商業啊，定係住宅啊咁樣樣嚇，或者係政府用地。第二就係你個樓宇覆蓋嗰個面積同埋嗰個高度。咁嗱，呢啲呢。就我唔知道你係咪一早已經定咗，或者一陣間你講俾我聽啦。另外就係有幾多個泊車位，因為即係去城規咧都唔係睇得你好細緻裏邊點用噶嘛，係咪？即係佢都知道你係文化用途，預咗你係買飛有觀眾去嘅，呢個定咗。但係至於你係要嚟做首映戲院啦，定係小型藝術展館啦，我相信城規就唔會話睇到咁細緻噶嘛。咁所以請秘書長一陣講翻啦。嗱，第一就。文件裏邊咧就話咗俾我哋聽，2011年年底之前呢，就兩樣嘢一齊做，一就係完成嗰個報告，第二就係交俾城規會。咁我哋議員嗰個問題呢，就係點解你唔係等埋嗰個報告，然後先交俾城規會呢？咁原來就唔使嘅。咁如果唔使等埋個報告，咁我哋第二個問題就係咁點解你唔一早交嘢俾城規會呢？即係要拖延咗咁耐呢？咁所以陣間就請秘書長同我哋講翻啦。究竟你交俾城規會嗰個圖則裏邊，而家係包括咗啲乜嘢呢？係咪其實嗰啲硬件嗰個殼，即係建築物嘅高度啊、大細啊、泊車位啊、道路安排啊嗰啲已經其實一早就定咗㗎啦。其實無需經過諮詢呢，都已經可以去㗎啦。呢個其一。其二呢，就係我都請阿秘書長睇一睇我哋自己秘書處呢做嗰份背景資料文件嗰附錄1，佢呢就列咗11個已經納入呢個建議發展圖則嘅其他2個概念方案嗰個亮點。咁其實裏邊呢，就唔係咁多係關乎嗰個工程嗰度嘅，其實係關乎嗰個用途就多啲。譬如你同一個建築物，究竟係用嚟做首映戲院或者係小型藝術展館，呢啲就係即係進一步嗰個圖則嘅設計㗎啦。即係同個城規呢，佢審批你嗰度係未必有關嘅。咁另外呢，我就想跟進頭先都有同事提出嚟啦，因為嗰個諮詢呢擺出嚟嘅嘢呢，就好靚嘅，都係呢個畫家筆下嘅印象嚟嘅啫咁。但係市民呢就會好開心啊，當晒真咁樣嚟做。咁其實你做諮詢嘅時候，你有冇遇到有一啲事情，好似你自己話係要視乎技術同埋法例嘅可能性？你有冇提翻即係入場參觀嘅市民係會有呢啲條件喺度，未必一定係做得到嘅？咁就即係將一個真相係話俾市民聽。咁另外一個可行性，你反為冇講出嚟嘅呢，就係其實成個西九都係填出嚟嘅，係咪真係可以種到咁高咁密嘅樹，可以成為一個城市中嘅森林？定因為其實最多種啲10零20尺高嘅樹嘅啫，即係點種都係有個限度㗎啦，唔會成為一個森林嘅咁。咁呢啲有冇攞翻出嚟去同市民去講清楚？即係你俾市民睇到嗰個畫家筆下嘅印象，係咪可以成為真相嘅呢？
阿秘書長。
主席，我回應幾句，一陣我請行政總裁再補充啦嚇。咁至於話同公眾即係帶個咩信息俾佢哋咧？呢樣我諗西九嘅同事係會比較清楚少少。但係頭先何議員最關注嗰啲所有嘅課題，關於個圖則裏邊嘅內容。咁個發展嗰個細則嘅問題呢，正就一陣我哋會傾嘅。咁一陣我哋有時間可以詳細啲再講嚇。咁但係你話係我哋係唔使等嗰個公眾諮詢結果，我哋就可以決定，就唔係嘅。即係我哋係等埋嗰個即係公眾嗰個參與嗰個分析嘅結果呢，我哋先至會去定到嗰個圖則係點樣，因為都有機會有啲嘢改㗎嘛。咁但係我哋唔能夠。
文件確實兩樣都係2011年年底做完。
係啊，但係嗰個係會先啲嘅，即係嗰個公眾嗰個分析係會先過我哋係最後拍板圖嗰個圖則。我哋唔能夠即係早啲去提交俾城規會都得，就因為嗰個工作係好長嘅一個工作嚟嘅，就唔可以話我哋年底收到嗰個諮詢報告先至開始做嗰個圖則，因為係好冗長嘅功夫嚟嘅。
連立志先生。
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Ho, just want to pick up a number of the issues you've raised. I guess the thing about PE3, which is important, I think I gave an undertaking that we would conduct PE3, and it wasn't until we'd received the responses to PE3 that we would then submit the plan to the Town Planning Board, and that's the timetable that we're working on. In regard to your specific issues, one in regard to the designs of the individual buildings, we went to great lengths and significant briefing of our staff that were looking after the exhibition in all of the information available at the exhibition, that the buildings that are referenced in both the documentation of the PE3 exercise and in the plan, that they were done by Foster and Partners as indicative of the whole of the master plan, but that the design competitions would determine the individual buildings and spaces within the site. And that was made very clear, that those blocks and the artist representations of the designs of the individual buildings were not the buildings that were going to be there. They were in the sites that we would be requesting approval for from the Town Planning Board, but the public would not see the actual design until we'd conducted the process that would go on from the beginning of next year. In regard to the trees issue, one of the first steps that we will take on the site when we get control of the site from the beginning of 2012, which we have never had in the past, which I think is a good indicator of the progress that we are starting to make with the project, is that we will establish a nursery on the site to be able to look at the issue of trees and the desired trees, what's going to happen. We are very confident that in the park we will be able to plant old trees, new trees and our own trees to be able to make sure that we provide the right degree of coverage across the site. It is obviously a site that is somewhat constrained by a number of issues in regard to the train lines and the Western Tunnel, but we are very confident we'll be able to manage those issues as part of the design for the park, which will be done early next year.
主席啊，如果秘書長咧，佢頭先都講話一定要睇咗嗰個報告，即係諮詢報告出咗嚟，然後先可以即係將個圖則遞俾城規會咧。咁我就覺得，即係我會認為喺呢兩個事情中間咧，一定要有一段合理嘅時間俾公眾去睇翻嗰個報告，睇下佢報告係咪公正，係咪做得妥當，然後咧先正好遞交個圖則俾城規會。否則咧，大家真係覺得，喂，其實你一早已經擺咗櫃桶底㗎啦，不過係即係做完即係等埋就，然後兩樣嘢一齊做，咁呢個就唔係好妥當咯。唔該主席。主席啊，我記得咧呢個西九咧，我哋由2005年第4季嗰陣時開始講，但係咧就而家最早嘅即係個公園嘅早期部分同埋小型展覽館咧都要2014到15年，即係足足10年，然後咧仲要即係真係 M+ 嘅第2期啊、大劇院啊呢啲咧去到2020之後，真係搞成15年，足都未搞得成出嚟，咁大家真係好弊啦！唔好講話同內地人哋起得幾快，即係就算係本身自己一個計劃，我哋由開始傾去到起晒，原來都要15年有突先正搞得掂。咁我想問，嗱而家就3期諮詢都已經做完啦，點解我哋唔可以快啲呢？點解我哋而家俾去城規嗰個圖則，只係能夠俾我哋去2014到15就起咗呢個小型展覽館同埋西九中央公園先呢？咁嗱，呢啲係落成嘅年份啦。咁我哋開展工程個年份有冇喺度呢？我哋係咪即係同戲曲中心、自由空間、當代表演中心大家一齊開展？不過因為建築需時，所以我哋先正會去到17先正落成得到呢。嗱，呢個其一，即係個問題就係點解唔可以快啲落成？咁究竟後邊嘅原因係咪我哋嗰個軟件人才策展人才培訓，定藝術行政人才培訓，甚至係藝團嘅培訓未講得切，定因為係錢嘅問題呢？即係如果係錢嘅問題，政府喺呢度即係有冇一個説法呢？因為嗱，我就係好接受即係210幾億係唔掂嘅，因為其他工程咧猛咁加價㗎啦。即係大家因為成本上漲呢，都要加成60成幾。咁當然呢個即係西九呢個建築要就因為建築成本通脹要加呢，我係接受嘅。當然我哋要好小心要睇住盤數。咁但係話到俾我哋聽點解咁遲？ 呢個原因可唔可以呢？如果因為係錢嘅問題，政府有冇一個説法呢？
總裁。
It's not a question of money. The issue is if we, I think people need to understand the scale and the complexity of this site and the interrelationship of those buildings. This is the biggest cultural project in the world, and clearly, to get it right, we need to ensure that there is adequate time for the Town Planning Board approval, which we understand could take us through a substantial part of 2012, and we would hope to be digging on the site by 2013. But the design process and the construction process for Zishu means that it's unlikely, and that is relevant to all major cultural buildings. You just don't build them the same way that you build a office residential or other commercial space. They require time, they require attention, and they require quite complex relationships between the various parts of the building process. So we believe that if we are able to go forward with the approval from the Town Planning Board by the end of 2012, we will have completed the site by 2015 and be able to open the site in 2015, which is our intention. But you look at the site now and you can see the complexities. There's a train line being built under part of the site, and that clearly creates some time issues until that train line, a project that's sort of is well underway, and then for major venues like M+, like the Music Centre, that they take long periods of development, long periods to build, and long periods to resolve. And despite the fact, I take on board your comment about a number of the Chinese facilities that have been built in 2 years, but I guess my view is that you try and get these projects right, and trying to do them in 2 years would only work against the long-term interest of the project.
主席啊，我咧就想管理局咧就俾份文件我哋，就係列出晒嗱，而家呢度1期、2期，去到即係 M+ 第2期啊、大劇院啊嗰啲咧，嗰個時間表係點樣樣，同埋包括埋呢啲地下嘅工程。
Sorry, M2, I'll answer specifically the question in regard to Phase 2. You will find with most major museums there is no M+ Phase 2 is meant to deal with the possible expansion of the space beyond 2020. And one of the great issues that many museums have found, including the Tate in London and most of the American museums, they have no space to expand their activities. And what we have built into Phase 2 of the M+ project is a site on the West Kowloon site that we may use in a temporary way over the period of years forward, but it enables, once the museum is established, once its range of activities are established, once its collection is established, that M+ enables that expansion in an easy and direct way without significant complications. In regard to the Great Theatre and the other spaces, we would be looking, and I guess I'm talking well beyond my tenure in terms of what we're talking about, but we're looking at 2020 to have delivered the first 12 venues, and 2020 to 2025 as depending on audience demand, artistic demand, all of those sorts of issues in regard to the other spaces.
主席啊，我總裁聽埋我想攞咩資料先啦。如果唔係佢唔知我想攞咩資料嚇。嗱，主席，我想攞嘅資料咧，就係呢啲第1期去到第2期咁多個項目嗰個時間表，唔係淨係落成年份。我想知道即係之前嗰啲準備功夫係點，幾時開展？咁於是乎我哋可以有一個實實在在嘅監察。可以睇下即係究竟邊啲時間係應該可以快啲，可以即係令到更加多嘅文化設施早日落成。我相信市民呢就唔會希望見到哇後邊啲豪宅啊、商場啊就起晒啦，前邊就仍然係地盤嗰陣時呢，大家真係反台啊，係嘛？咁所以呢，我就請管理局呢就將呢啲項目，無論係硬件工程、 或者軟件嗰個配合嗰個時間表咧，都列出嚟俾我哋，即係等我哋可以有個基礎去參考監察咯。唔該，主席。
我相信何議員嗰個要求清楚。
Very happy to do that.
我都希望能夠即係能夠提供。咁但係咧，我想有一樣都要喺度澄清嘅啫。因為頭先我聽到何議員講話，即係你哋都即係會接受咧嗰個增加撥款。我相信呢個你個人意見就絕對就唔係我哋委員會，因為上一次一討論嘅時候咧，就已經係有引起社會上嘅一個反彈嘅啦。所以我哋喺度咧再重申呢個即係何秀蘭議員嘅個人意見。
係啊，主席，不過我頭先講個意見咧，就係基於我哋好多其他工程咧追加撥款，立法會都制嘅。嗰啲又冇乜意見嘅喎，照拍板。
呢個就係另一個問題好嘛？即係話你未有討論咧，我覺得呢個就係大家要有一個清楚嘅嗰個
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to say that there are no cost overruns at this point, so no, I just to clarify that.
唔該，主席，我都係想問啲軟件問題嘅。嗱，建造成個西九各個建築物係點，各個設施係點？當然嗰個時間我哋頭先講咗啦，我自己就嫌慢啦。咁但係呢，就呢個建築進度我嫌慢之餘呢，我都要問，咁你軟件嗰度你係咪配合得到呢？嗱，比如我哋話喺林蔭大道嗰度有街頭表演。咁而家嗰個政策，大家係點諗呢？呢啲街頭表演，你係俾牌照俾表演者，等佢大家輪到去，即係一人一個位，或者一人一個時段咁去做，好似外國咁樣，即係喺地鐵站裏邊演奏呢，就係要同市政府註冊攞個牌嘅。定抑或係好似我哋而家尖東逢星期六夜晚咁樣呢，就係大家唔使攞牌㗎啦。哇！你真係大家一齊走去夾 band， 主席你都得閒去睇下，好好玩嘅嗰度。咁呢，就你係開放俾呢啲業餘嘅，即係大家走去無論係唱粵曲或者係唱紅歌或者係即係夾 band 啊，各樣有啊，秘書長有嘅。即係你係咁樣開放出嚟呢，係定抑或係點呢？咁嗱，即係呢度呢，我就希望。管理局即係可以就翻佢呢啲設施落成嘅進度，去話埋俾我哋聽。使用呢啲空間嗰個軟件嗰個政策規劃係點樣樣。另外呢，就係我要追問呢個文學館，因為呢，其實文學館呢就好容易嘅啫，即係擺喺邊度都得嘅。就算擺喺個商場個商業設施裏邊，擺喺所有書局嘅隔離中間都得嘅。咁所以呢，呢度我哋就要問啦。咁你文學館呢個進度係點樣規劃呢？因為即係雖然文學就唔係賣到錢，咁但係當成個社會對文學嗰個品味係提升嘅時候呢，確實係令佢係更加有興趣去入場去睇好多其他音樂啊、話劇啊或者電影嘅表演嘅。咁所以大家都話啦，其實文學係各種藝術之母。咁呢樣我就最緊張啦。咁呢個進度究竟係點樣規劃？會唔會仲遲過2020呢？咁我好老實，我真係有啲矛盾，因為其實文學館係應該擺喺商場，應該擺喺所有書局隔離嘅，就唔應該零零舍舍就咁即係當佢係好特別咁升咗上神台，然後冇人識去。咁佢係應該同呢啲書本出版嘅商業設施，大家係一齊去互動啊，擺埋一齊，好普及。咁樣去推出去，咁但係嗰個進度係點樣搞法呢？唔該，主席。
好，總裁。
I'll pick up both issues. Clearly, a large amount, once we've submitted the plan for in the end of this year to town planning, a significant amount of our effort next year will be focusing on the software issues. The first major software issue for us is the temporary use of the site, which we get control of in January, and a range of activities across all of the artistic areas that we will be conducting over the course of the next 3 years in various parts of the site. The first project will be the Bamboo Theatre project on the Zishu Theatre site for Chinese New Year in January 2012. That will be the first West Kowloon Cultural District project. And then we'll be rolling out a substantial number of activities on the site over the coming 3 years. Clearly, the issue of permits, I guess I would stand or fall on the fact that the branding that we put over the project was that West Kowloon will be a place for everyone. So the idea of people being able to use the site, and we've given certain undertakings about walking on grass, lying on grass, singing, doing all sorts of other things, and I think that will be very much the spirit in which we create the park and the public spaces. With the exception of bagpipes, because I had a bagpipe outside my window at South Bank Centre for the 7 years I was there, and I will never allow a bagpipe near the part of the site in terms of interference with the public amenities of the people. In regard to the, and I don't mean to offend the Scots or the bagpipe players of the world, in regard to the Literary Centre, I think your suggestion is very much in line with what we've been talking about, aligning a literary centre with publishing spaces, but more importantly, trying to preserve the book as part of the remit of West Kowloon. So clearly there are within those 150 commercial spaces, there is spaces for bookshops and activities, and we think it is logical to be able to group some of those activities together in the same way that we're proposing to put a residence company building together, which brings together the major residents of the cultural facilities. We will use that in a similar method for the literary centre.
咁幾時有咧？
嗱，咁樣啦，因為我本來就畫咗線㗎啦，但係咧梁家傑議員咧就啱啱先到嚟，咁我俾埋你啦，我5分鐘時間，我哋就會結束咗今日嘅會議㗎啦。